Okay, so get ready because today we're going deep, like really deep. We're talking about the soul, and you guys sent in some stuff from Allan Karec, his The Gospel According to the Spirit.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're tackling a pretty huge topic. Purity of heart. Like,
Yeah.
what does it even mean to be pure? Not just in some afterlife, but like right here, right now,
It's interesting. What makes Kardec so fascinating is he's not just repeating, old ideas.
Yeah.
He's actually taking centuries of this debate and really, really trying to figure out how does purity tie into being human?
Right.
How do we even define morality? And he starts off with this real head scratcher. It's straight from Jesus. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Okay, hold on. Seeing God.
Right.
What, are we talking, is this a literal thing? Is this like some kind of spiritual vision quest? Or are we talking about something way deeper? What do you think?
That's the question, isn't it? Some people, they think it's all about these mystical experiences, like you said, a direct line to the divine.
Right. Other people, they think it's about understanding God's will or feeling God's presence more strongly in your life. Kardec, he kind of leans toward that second idea. That it's about how inner purity changes us from the inside out.
So it seems like he's saying it's not just about what we do, but like what we think.
Yeah, absolutely.
He brings up this pretty intense quote from Matthew where Jesus says even looking at somebody lustfully is like you've already committed adultery in your heart.
Wow.
Whoa. Talk about like thought police, right?
It was a radical concept for sure. Jesus and later Kardec, they were saying our inner world, our thoughts, our intentions, all that stuff, it carries real weight. It challenges that whole idea of as long as you're acting right, anything goes on the inside.
It makes you wonder though, like if I just think something bad, does that actually make me a bad person?
Yeah.
Have you ever wrestled with that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's like it gets to the core of what we even think about sin, you know?
Kardec really goes deep into this. He says that there's a difference between like a fleeting bad thought that you just kind of brush off,
right,
versus one that you really dwell on. You know, maybe you even enjoy it. And it's that conscious choice to kind of hang out with negativity. That's what really messes with our spiritual growth, he says.
So it's not like we have to become thought police, like freaking out over every negative thought that pops up. It's more about noticing those patterns, those thoughts that are constantly taking us down a dark path.
Exactly. It's like you're building your own internal moral compass, learning to tell the difference between the thoughts that are helping you grow versus the ones that are really holding you back.
So this kind of leads us to something else Kardec talks about, children. Jesus, he always used them as these symbols of purity. He would say, let the little children come to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. But here's the thing, Kardec, he also believed in reincarnation. So if kids have lived before, can they really be that pure?
Right. Now that's where things get really, really interesting. Kardec says, look, kids, they aren't pure in the sense of, having these perfect souls already, but they haven't developed those darker tendencies yet. He calls them perverse inclinations. So that makes them like a symbol of openness,
right,
this willingness to learn, to grow, and that's something we need in our own spiritual journey.
So it's not about literally turning into kids again.
No.
Oh, thank goodness.
Not at all.
But it's more about rediscovering that childlike wonder, that openness to new things, that trust we all had, before life kind of jaded us.
Yeah, it's about remembering that, that spark that we all had.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think, what parts of that innocence are good to hold on to?
Right.
And what parts are we actually supposed to grow out of as adults? What do you think?
That's a great question. And it makes me think about how easy it is to get cynical, to lose that spark as we get older. Maybe part of this purity of heart thing is remembering how to see the good again, to have hope, to believe in change, like we did when we were kids.
I love that. And it connects so well with what Kardec says about Jesus and the Pharisees.
Ah, yes. The classic story of Jesus calling out the Pharisees for being obsessed with hand washing rituals, but totally ignoring true inner purity.
Yeah.
Feels pretty relevant even today, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like this timeless reminder, that Focusing only on appearances, following the rules without any heart, it can distract us from the real work, that inner transformation that actually matters.
It's like when we get so caught up in like social media perfection or, obsessing over following rules without even understanding why we're following them.
Hmm.
It makes you wonder, are we really being kind? Are we being compassionate? Are we living with integrity? Or are we just going through the motions?
It's so easy to fall into that trap,
Yeah.
The Pharisees are like this warning sign for all of us. Like, check your motivations, make sure your actions are matching your values, not just looking good on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of things that can lead us astray, Kardec, he talks a lot about scandal in the gospel.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not just about, like, shocking behavior.
Right.
It's something much, much bigger.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. It's not just about like gossiping or behaving badly in public. It's like anything that comes from our weaknesses and ends up hurting other people.
Exactly. It's about how our imperfections, they can create roadblocks, not just on our own spiritual path, but they trip up other people too.
Right.
And what's interesting is that Kardec, he isn't naive about this. He knows scandals will happen because, well, we're human and
Yeah.
we mess up. But he also sees them as chances to learn, to grow, not just for the people involved, but for everyone watching.
So it's not about like pointing fingers and blaming. It's more about understanding we all make mistakes. And those mistakes, they can either drag us down or they can be this opportunity to change for the better.
Exactly. It's like that saying, we're all just works in progress.
Yeah, exactly.
It all comes down to whether we let those mistakes define us or whether we use them as fuel to become better versions of ourselves.
I like that.
And, that brings us to one of the most powerful and often misunderstood lines in the whole gospel. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Intense imagery, right?
No, yeah, it's so vivid, so drastic. But Kardec isn't talking about like literally cutting off your hand, is he?
Of course not. It's a metaphor,
Okay.
but it's a powerful one.
Hmm.
He's talking about how radically committed we need to be to overcome these deep-seated negative patterns that we all have.
Right.
It's like saying if something, anything, a behavior, a relationship, even a way of thinking, if it's constantly leading you down a bad path, you've got to be willing to cut it out of your life completely.
That's a serious call to action.
It is.
What do you think are like some modern day hands we might need to cut off?
Ooh, good question. It could be anything that's really consuming you with negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's an unhealthy obsession, an addiction, maybe a toxic relationship. Anything that keeps tripping you up, even when you're trying your best to, grow spiritually.
Yeah, and that takes guts, doesn't it? To let go of things that feel comfortable, feel familiar, even if they're, secretly hurting us in the long run.
It does. It's about choosing that long-term spiritual growth, even if it means some short-term discomfort. It's about being honest with yourself about what's truly serving you and what's holding you back. And this all ties in perfectly with Kardec's whole exploration of spiritual sight and blindness.
Right, you're talking about that story of the blind person who's seeking healing.
Yeah.
And the spirit of Vianney tells them, "Blessed are the blind who want to live with God.
Mm.
Blindness of the eyes is often the true light of the heart." Wait, so physical blindness is actually a good thing.
Well, that's the mind-blowing part, right? Think about it. Being physically blind, it can be like this incredible freedom from all those distractions and temptations that come with sight. I mean, our world is constantly bombarding us with things to buy, things to want, things to make us compare ourselves to other people. It's exhausting.
So blindness, in a way, it's like a release. It allows you to turn inward, find peace, connect with something bigger than yourself without all that external noise.
Exactly. And it shows us that true seeing, the kind that Jesus was talking about, it's not just about what your eyes are taking in. It's about developing this deeper, more intuitive way of perceiving the world, one that looks past all the superficial stuff and gets to the heart of things.
So it's about like seeing the good in people, the beauty in everything, the connections between everything in the universe.
Yeah,
And that's a kind of seeing that doesn't require physical sight at all.
exactly. It's about developing a deeper understanding of yourself, your place in the world, and your connection to something so much bigger than yourself. And that brings us right back to this idea of purity of heart. It's not about being perfect or avoiding mistakes. It's about this inner state of being where you can navigate all the messiness of life with clarity, compassion, and intention.
It's like striving to be the best version of yourself, even when you know you're going to mess up sometimes.
Precisely. And it's a journey that we're all on together. But, Kardec also talks about how this journey isn't random. He brings up this idea, this law of cause and effect, especially when he's discussing blindness. He suggests that sometimes suffering, it's a result of our past actions, maybe even from a previous life.
Right, that's where the reincarnation piece comes in. He's saying suffering, it's not like some random punishment from God. It's the natural consequence of our choices, both in this life and past lives. It's a tough concept to grasp, but it does make you think about responsibility.
It does. It suggests that we're not just victims of circumstance, We're active participants in shaping our own destiny. The choices we make today, the choices we made in past lives, they all contribute to the experiences we have. It's complex, but it emphasizes how important it is to make choices that really align with our values, with our truest selves.
Because those choices are going to shape our experiences, not just in this life, but maybe even beyond. Wow, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts so far? What's resonating with you?
For me, it's this idea that we're all connected, and our choices, they have these ripple effects that reach far beyond ourselves. Cultivating purity of heart, it's not just about self-improvement. It's about contributing to the well-being of everyone and everything around us. It's about making the world a better place, one thought, one action at a time.
It's a beautiful and kind of daunting idea, isn't it?
It is.
It's a beautiful and kind of daunting idea, isn't it? That we can actually impact the world around us just by working on our own, inner purity. But it makes me wonder, where do we even begin? After all this talk about purity of heart, the thoughts, the childlike qualities, ditching the empty rituals, navigating those scandals, even seeing the world differently, what does it even look like in our, everyday lives?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's easy to get kind of lost in the concepts, right?
Right.
But if we connect all these threads, I think what we end up with is this really powerful invitation, this invitation to inner transformation. And it's not about reaching this impossible standard of perfection.
Right.
It's about making conscious choices in our thoughts, our actions, how we treat ourselves, how we treat other people, and aligning them with our deepest values, what we truly want to be.
So it's about striving to live in a way that reflects the good we have inside, even though we're, human. We're going to mess up sometimes.
Exactly. And it takes real courage and honesty to face those shadow parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
Those things that keep us stuck in negativity, in fear, in feeling separate from everything else. We can't just pretend those parts don't exist.
So we're not talking about denying our flaws or pretending to be perfect. It's more about acknowledging those darker aspects.
Yeah.
Understanding, where they came from and making the choice to move beyond them. It's almost like turning our weaknesses into strengths.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. True purity, it's not about erasing our imperfections.
Yes.
It's about transforming them.
Mm-hmm.
It's using our experiences, the good and the bad, as fuel for growth, for evolution.
Mm-hmm.
It's this journey of becoming whole, accepting all of who we are, and then choosing to move forward on this path, on this path of spiritual growth with courage and compassion. But here's the thing, we don't have to do it alone. Karec, he really emphasizes this idea that we're all interconnected, and love and compassion, they play such a huge role in our spiritual development.
So it's not about isolating ourselves to become pure.
No.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's about recognizing that our actions, they affect other people, that our own growth, it's tied to our relationships and how we interact with the world.
Exactly. It's about cultivating empathy, understanding that everyone is on their own journey, and our own growth, it contributes to the evolution of humanity as a whole.
Right.
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together. It's about seeing those connections between everything and everyone.
Yeah.
And understanding our choices have this ripple effect. It goes way beyond just ourselves.
And that brings us back to that idea of seeing God. Maybe it's not about some grand mystical vision.
Right.
Maybe it's about recognizing that divine spark that exists within each of us, within every being we encounter. What do you think?
I love that. Maybe it's about looking at the world through the lens of love and compassion, seeing those connections, understanding that our choices, they have the power to create a more just world, a more harmonious world, a more loving world. But that makes it sound so grand and so overwhelming. How do we actually do that?
It is a beautiful vision, isn't it? And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. We can embody purity of heart in so many small everyday ways. Think about the kindness we offer to others, the choices we make that prioritize the well-being of all beings, the times we use our voices to speak up for justice, for equality, even something as simple as appreciating the beauty of nature.
So it's about aligning our thoughts and our actions and even our intentions with those core principles,
Hmm.
like love and compassion and understanding. And those principles, they're at the heart of so many spiritual traditions, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
And even the smallest acts of kindness, of compassion, they can create this ripple effect, contributing to a more loving and harmonious world.
Yeah, it's about remembering that we're all in this together, and our choices, they matter. They have this power to create a world that reflects that goodness inside us all. But let's be real for a second. This journey of cultivating purity of heart,
Yeah.
it's not always easy, is it?
You're right. You're right. There will
Yeah.
be challenges. There will be setbacks. There will be times when we make mistakes and we don't live up to our own ideals. That's just
Yeah.
part of being human.
So it's not about avoiding those like difficult parts of life. It's about learning to move through them
Yeah.
with grace, with wisdom, with compassion. It's about embracing that whole messy journey, knowing that even when we mess up, we're still evolving. We're still moving closer to that purity of heart.
Beautifully said. And it's important to remember that purity of heart, it's not a destination that you reach and then you're done.
Right.
It's an ongoing process. It's this process of growth, of transformation, of refinement. It's something we cultivate through our choices, through our interactions, through this constant effort to align ourselves with our highest aspirations.
It's like a lifelong practice, a commitment to continually striving for greater clarity, greater compassion, greater connection with that divine spark within us.
Yeah, and it's a journey that's open to all of us, you know. No matter what our past looks like or what challenges we're facing right now. It's never too late to start making choices that lead us towards that spiritual growth, that greater understanding and more love in our lives.
That's such a hopeful message. It reminds me of that idea that every moment it's a chance to start fresh,
Yes,
to make a different choice.
exactly. We always have the power to choose a different path, to turn towards the light, to cultivate those qualities of purity of heart within ourselves. It's a journey that requires both, inner transformation and outward action. It's this delicate balance between focusing on our own growth and contributing to the well-being of others.
Mhm.
And it's not always easy to find that balance, is it?
No, it's definitely a dance, but it's a dance that's filled with both challenges and rewards, and ultimately it leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves, our connection to something bigger, and our role in creating a more loving and harmonious world.
It invites us to embrace all of who we are, the light and the shadow, and to use our experiences as catalysts for growth, for transformation, for
Yeah.
fulfilling our greatest potential. It's a call to become beacons of light, radiating love, radiating compassion, radiating understanding into a world that desperately needs it. And it all begins with a single step, with a conscious choice to align ourselves with those principles of purity of heart. But what does all of this mean for you?
Yeah.
What stands out to you as particularly relevant or thought-provoking?
Yeah, it's a lot to process, isn't it? This whole idea that we can transform ourselves and make the world better just by focusing on inner purity. Inspiring, but honestly kind of intimidating too.
I get that. It's a huge idea.
Yeah.
And what I really like about Kardec is he doesn't pretend it's easy. He's honest about the scandals, about how past choices matter, and that, the road to purity, it's not always a smooth ride.
Yeah, it's not like we reach this perfect state where everything's blissful and there are no more problems, right?
Exactly.
It's more about learning how to deal with the ups and downs, the bumps in the road, but doing it with grace, with wisdom, and with compassion.
Yeah, it's about how we respond to those tough times.
So it's not about trying to be perfect, which is impossible anyway.
Right.
It's about embracing the whole journey, all the good, the bad, the messy parts, knowing that even when we make mistakes, we're still growing. We're still moving closer to that purity of heart.
I love that. You said it perfectly. And it's so important to remember, purity of heart, it's not some finish line you cross and you're done.
Right.
It's an ongoing thing, right? It's constantly changing, growing, becoming more refined. It's something we have to work at every day through our choices, through how we treat others, through always trying to live up to our highest ideals.
It's a lifelong practice, isn't it? Always striving for more clarity, more compassion, more connection with that divine spark that's inside us all.
Absolutely. And it's a journey that's open to everyone. It doesn't matter what your past looks like or what you're going through right now. It's never too late to start making choices that bring more spiritual growth, more understanding, more love into your life.
So after all this deep dive into purity of heart, what what really speaks to you? What parts stand out? What's got you thinking?
For me, it's that focus on how connected we all are. Like our choices have this ripple effect. They go way beyond just ourselves. It reminds me that becoming more pure, it's not just about self-improvement. It's about helping everyone, helping the whole world.
That's beautiful. And for me, it's that image of cutting off the things that lead us to evil. It's such a strong image, but it shows how committed we need to be to overcome those bad habits, those negative patterns, to really choose a path of love and compassion.
It's powerful, right?
Yeah.
And it shows that we have the power to change our own lives and to change the world around us.
So what does it mean for you to cultivate purity of heart in your life? What hand might you need to cut off, metaphorically? And what does it mean to develop that kind of sight that sees beyond the surface?
Those are great questions, and I think they're worth really spending some time with. Think about it. What habits, what beliefs, what ways of thinking might be holding you back from growing spiritually? And how can you start seeing the world with more compassion, more understanding, more love?
And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are so many people, so many teachings, so many communities that can help you along the way. Don't be afraid to reach out, to connect, to ask for guidance and support.
This journey towards purity of heart, it's a lifelong adventure, it's full of challenges, but it's also incredibly rewarding. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, learning from everything you go through, and always moving closer to that divine spark that's within you.
So as we wrap things up today, we really encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. Dive deeper into Kardec. See what other spiritual traditions have to say about purity and inner transformation. Let this be just the beginning of your own journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth.
And remember, this journey, it's so worth it. The world needs more hearts that are striving for purity, for compassion, for connection. And your journey matters. We're cheering you on every step of the way.